want the sequencing to be about the prices first. Let us know what we're going into, and then we can absolutely consult as many people as possible, and we can help the club. But it's got to be more detail than what we're seeing now.
My match day vlogs are designed to give fans a voice before and after every game, and I'm so grateful to them for contributing, all the people who do, and for you for watching. But I also put up other videos from time to time that I hope you'll find interesting. Like last week, Lee Jackson, the former groundsman, talking about his job and his career. And this week, another extra video, which is with members of different City fan groups, supporters groups, campaign groups, whatever, talking about the development of the new North Stand at the Etihad Stadium. And this is an hour-long audio podcast originally, and you're going to see, I think, about 15 minutes or so of the same debate. It's exactly the same as the audio version on video. The full-length version, which I would urge you to listen to, which talks about Flex Gold or Gold Flex, the new season ticket, if you want to call it, and other issues, is available on SoundCloud, or you can find it on iTunes or Spotify. And by following me on social media, I always post the links up. So check that out and have a listen to it. And here, to give you a little idea of what the discussions were about, is a section where the new North Stand was discussed. Hope you find this interesting. Feel free to comment. And thanks as always for watching, because it's great to be a Blue. So here's that discussion. Hope you enjoy it and find it interesting.
As it is now, I don't think it's going to happen as an atmospheric end. That's my honest opinion.
Let me just say something about last week's show, because I think it was Andy that was saying, what is the plan? Is the plan for people to move from one end to the other and this sort of thing? And, there is no plan as far as we're concerned. We don't have the power to we wouldn't tell anybody to move seats. When we went into 115, it's because it was a block that was available that nobody... It was away fans were vacating that block, so it was not going to disrupt anybody by us going in there. You remember when Danny Wilson came on Blue Tuesday, lots of times, level 2, so many people have moved, Tunnel Club, 216, different corporate areas inside the ground, 92, 320s, Joe's, etc. It's got to be something really special for people to move. A lot of people like the away fans there. We have 18,000 people standing at Wembley for the Cup final on the lower tier. We have 7,000 people now stood in the South Stand. It's just that they're in different parts of the South Stand. South 3, 314, 315. The back 6-8 rows of 316 to 318. Kippax Corner 111, all stand, 750. And 4,500 South Lower stand. There is enough people to make it a proper end. But the thing is a split between three areas, and what we can't have is split that even more into 4 small pockets. If you're going to do it, we either all move as one, or we all stay as we are. But we don't control all the singers. There's plenty of people who could, and we know plenty of people in our membership who maybe will go in. We'll be happy to go into that area. We'll still support people who want to go over there, and you might have enough energy and enough desire from the club to make it work. If they make that section more central, you could then have the two ends spark each other off, like Schalke or something like that. It can still happen, but we're not going to turn around to people and say, we think you should move. It's up to the club to come up with a vision, sell it, tell us why it's going to be better than it is now. A lot of people settled in the South Stand and they really like it. And it's all right saying, South Stand doesn't affect the whole ground and stuff, but I think what people in the South Stand are doing their bit overall, and some of the issues why it doesn't travel around the ground is simply because of the changing demographics in the stadium. A lot of the issues that we raise over the course of time, people being priced out of it.
Dante, if the club are not all in, why should you be all in? The club are not all in on this atmospheric end. That's what I was expecting. So to create even the Sky Lounge or Sky Bar they want on the roof, or near the roof, the big corporate bar that's going to be a bit like Joe's or 9320, I think, right in the middle of it. They've gone for bits and bats all over that stand. With the bit of a family area. If they're not all in, why?
But the thing is though, is we know what happens at the club. the club is. The club have very high financial targets to generate revenue. They want us to double the commercial revenues. And so what Ferran Soriano is very good at is making money for the club. That's his remit. He has to make money for the club.
What's that got to do with this, though?
So what I'm saying is that, you know, at the end of the day, people at the top might make a decision. They might want an atmosphere, but at the end of the day, what supersedes it is how can we make money out of each product? And that's where there's a clash of what we want and what the club want.
But they're missing the trick, which is those 500 hospitality seats right in the middle of the New North, they could be anywhere. So if you want to earn money from people paying £100 a ticket or more, there's only 500 of them, give the whole of the North Stand to be an atmospheric end and find places on the sides and in other stands to do that.
Yeah. We don't know what the plans are, though. You know, that could be 500 now, but over time they might want to say, well, we want to grow that corporate area even more. Once they get a bit of a foot in there, they might want to grow it again. So that's what we're up against, you know. And we've not, you know, things like Blue Moon, it's like a 2-3 year kind of discussion. I think this is going to happen. I think this is going to. Expectation levels are through the roof. But I've got to say, none of us here have raised any expectation levels about what's going to happen. It's just because the club said Carl Dean said years ago, we want a blue wall. And then they probably thought, no,
I think
the blue wall, we want more money.
If you look at the plans, though, that's what it is, isn't it? They've built like this massive second tier in North Stand Level 2, and it's perfect for an atmospheric home end.
I couldn't agree
more.
It's
an open goal. It's an open goal that they're gonna.
But the images we've seen are with people like with flags on the bottom tier, and then all of a sudden, the atmosphere is going to be the top tier. So when the original chat with the club happened, there was no rail seating from the club, and we said, well, we should have 7,000, and they came back with 3. So the thing is, it's like this rail seating is an afterthought. It wasn't part of their plans in the first place, which is why I was suspicious that it's not going to work.
Yeah, I would also stress as well for to you, Ian, because I hadn't mentioned it previously. Obviously, for these meetings, 1894 surveyed our membership as well as the wider fan base to get feedback on these stances. So when we're saying things like 6,000-7,000 rail seats, and that was based on data that we got from the surveys we ran from not just our membership, but also we put that on social media and various forums and asked different groups to share it. And we got quite a lot of data from that. And the vast amount of that data came back. It was something like 86% of people wanted to see an atmospheric North Stand. It was higher than that, wanted rail seating in the North Stand. 61% of people who responded said they would move to the North Stand if it was an atmospheric North Stand. There was absolutely tons of data. I mean, we even asked for things like how many season cards should be released. And the fans came back and said, we think that roughly 70% of the tickets that become available through the expansion should be dedicated to season cards. And that's what we based a lot of when we went into these meetings or negotiations. That was what I was trying to push for quite a lot in those meetings. I mean, there's still a lot of data. There's still a lot of information to be revealed by the club, which I won't jump the gun and say. But we are quite open with the survey data and with what we wanted to see in the North Stand. So let's see what comes out of it. And I think the big kind of critique that we 1894 are getting on, especially Blue Moon Forum, we're supported a lot more on places like Facebook, but on Blue Moon Forum, people are saying, stop being stupid, 1894, just grow up and just back this idea and throw all your members into this North Stand. And the point that I'm perhaps not eloquent enough to explain to people is that we don't know what we're going into. We don't know what the pricing structure is. We don't know whether tickets are going to be 10 times more expensive in there than in South Stand Level 1. We don't know the demand for fans to move now after they've seen the images that have been released. The club have alluded to adding more rail seats in if the demand is there. But what does that look like? Will that be 2 seasons down the line? Will it be before the opening of the stand? We don't have that information. So we have to reflect what our members want But how do our members know what they want with a complete lack of information on the subject? They can't form a real decision at this point. So that's just a point to anyone who's a bit disappointed with 1894 for not fully getting behind this idea. At this point in time, it's a concept. There isn't a full blown plan that we can analyze and pitch to our members to form a real stance on. It puts us in a position to we can critique what's out there in the open, but we have an NDA. There's certain things that haven't been released yet. That some good, some bad. We're not in a position to do anything at this point. So
I was in those meetings, Lucas, and I don't think it's fair of anybody to say that 1894 weren't all in. If they'd have come to us and said, "Look, there's 11,000 seats in this new stand, 7 extra, so it's nearly, I think somebody correct me if I'm wrong, 11,000 seats with one massive tier. The design is absolutely perfect for saying to you guys, how can we make this work? And for you almost to be giving them some leading ideas on what to do. Instead of that, they've come back with a mishmash of which might work commercially, but it doesn't work as an atmospheric end the way they're planning to use it right now. And I think you're perfectly within your rights to say you've not given us something that we can work with, so we cannot say to people. And on top of that, you're telling us that some information we've got to keep secret from our membership. So
yeah, and just to reiterate what Lucas is saying there, really important is we're talking about the sequencing. So on Blue Moon, they're going, tell them that you're going in first, and then we'll work out the prices afterwards. Well, you're going to buy a house, you want to know what the cost is first before you buy it, unless you're going into a blind auction. So how can we had this in tier 1? They made tier 3 cheaper prices for a couple of years, and then they start going up. So the singers are split because of tier 3, because tier 3 was a lot cheaper than tier 1, and half the people went up there, and that's the problem we've got. So they've got a 5-year business plan as a fan advisory board. People are allowed to ask, what is your 5-year business plan? Tell us about the money. What are people going to be charged? So they can, if you're going to move people from the south to the north, or from Colin Bell, or from the East End, what's the comparison? If I stay here, what's the price? If I go there, what's the price? If you're selling it business in that atmosphere end, let's just say if half the people there are on Flexi Gold and the match days, there's no new season ticket, and it's a different person next to me every week, how is that going to improve the atmosphere? How is we going to, people sing because they feel comfortable with the people around them. If it's just a load of individuals, it's the same as the Community Shield against Arsenal, where we had 33,000 people, but there wasn't one song in the whole 90 minutes. And Ruben Diaz is going up to the City fans saying, come on, sing at penalties. And there's not a peep. And that's what we fear, could happen. And it doesn't need to be like that. So that's why we're saying that tell us the prices and tell us how many season cards there's going to be, because that's important to get the atmosphere right. And if someone doesn't go at the game, does that ticket then go back into affordable prices for City fans, or do you go on a package where you've got to stay in the hotel and have a meal somewhere else? That could also happen. And so that's why it's important to know the detail. The fans got one idea, the club may have another idea of how they want it to go. So
Alex, just wanted to bring Alex in because he's not said anything or had the chance to say anything. So go on, Alex, have you got any thoughts?
Yeah, and I think just to reiterate what Mark and Lucas said at the start, obviously there's a lot of positive elements to this North Stand. I don't want us to appear like it's all doom and gloom. Clearly, there are benefits, things like the revamped City Square, for example. But I think, Lucas and Dante have touched upon it from an 1894 perspective. But, I think this point about needing more information, is critical. It's not just around, technically, it's not about those who want to move in for atmosphere. It's about anyone who wants to move in there theoretically. And one of the big concerns that the club have had through this process around particularly safe standing numbers in that stand is, well, how can we know how many people are going to move in? Now, there's a point that's been raised around expressions of interest and giving people the information. That's something that, myself, Lucas, we've been raising for months. The club have chosen not to do that so far, and I'm not sure why they wouldn't, but, it's something that they could have already done and should do now. And they need information around, like Dante said, around pricing, around what the season ticket situation going to look like. because until people know that information, well, there's not really much of a decision for people to make. Would you move into a hypothetical stand? Well, no, I like where I am now. No, and it's a known. The North Stand's an unknown known at this point. So, you know, whilst I might disagree around some of the configurations of the stand and whatnot, I think the ask going forward has certainly got to be for the club to get as much information out as possible, but critically on this say standing point to get an expression of interest out there to people, because you can't do this years down the line. What are you going to say in once we've got people sat in there, you can't move them around the ground. There's nowhere else to move them to. So it's a critical point this, and I think the club need to A, release the information, but B, do the expression of interest, which they've already been asked to do.
Yeah, I think as well, fans genuinely want to. They're not like naturally critical of the club. The fans want the best for the club in the long run, which is to it is for a club that fully engages with its legacy fans. And you a few points that kind of spring to mind on that are things like playing. Let's get everything straight. The club are brilliant. The way they run Manchester City as a business is unbelievable, especially compared to what we've had to in the past. They're clearly incredibly bright, intelligent business people. What Mark mentioned it earlier about the kind of legacy fan getting the hump a bit and being a bit upset because we're not being brought along. But the really simple things that the club can do. So for argument's sake, just over the past few weeks, we've played a home game in the Champions League in a white shirt. Just stupid. Like we play in blue. We don't play home games in a white shirt. Don't do that. We introduced this rule about charging disabled fans to park at the stadium, and the revenue it would bring in for an organisation like Manchester City is completely negligible. So just don't do it. Take the win. Just don't make such a stupid PR decision.
Maybe they're not as
there are
bright
other
as you think they are, Lucas.
Yeah, it's it. I mean, another easy win for the club is if they look on the Blue Moon forum, there is so much engagement and interest in the construction behind the North Stand. There are people going and flying drones over the stadium, trying to get a look at where it's up to. People love it. The Etihad Stadium is a church to so many people, and people are interested in that. Why don't the club engage more with fans and release these images and behind the scenes? And it's all such easy wins that the club can do with relatively little effort, but they're not doing. And it creates this environment where fans like the five of us on here, who I would unfortunately, guys, have classed us all as legacy fans. It just makes you feel like, well, is this our club? Is this it? We see ourselves as Manchester City. So bring us with you, take us with you on that journey, and we'll be far more forgiving of the hiccups and the things that go wrong if you do that. But obviously on things like the North Stand, the City fans are craving this home end. They're craving that atmospheric home end. There are alternatives to anything. So revenue through hospitality or GA plus seats. I think there are 600 of them at the front, right in a prime location for where an atmospheric stand would link to the level below. It would cause issues there. There's easy solutions to it. Just move them around slightly, move them along the side of the pitch rather than behind the goal. It's not an overly complex situation that doesn't have any easy solution to it. So
you've all made some great points. Sadly, from the point of view of not having a club representative on here, or this not being some sort of democratic thing where we can carry a vote and make things happen, maybe nothing will come from this. But I'm delighted to have given you guys a platform to discuss it and to make all this public for those who are interested and who listen to the podcast. So I hope people will share this podcast and listen to it and listen to all the points that are made and in context as well, because I know one of the things that Dante was concerned about, well, I'm sure we're all concerned about, is that when you give a few quotes to, either you put something on Twitter or X or whatever, or a few quotes to a journalist, you've given this whole thing in over an hour, proper context in terms of what you're aiming for, what you hope to achieve, what the issues are, and also that this isn't just been a negative talking shop of trying to knock on the head the football club that we all love. So I would say thank you to you all for contributing. I feel certain that somebody from the club will listen to this. Whether they'll admit that or not is another thing, but they will
Certainly
listen
read
to
Blue
it.
Moon. They do read Blue Moon. Put that on the record. I know that.
Well,
It's like the Brian Clough sketch where he says, "If he's not watching today, I'll be watching tomorrow."
well, I'm certain people will listen, and they know me well enough to know that if ever they want to talk publicly as well, they will be more than welcome and have this type of a discussion. But I suspect that for now, at least, that isn't going to happen.
No,
but
we don't expect that. That's not their style. We wouldn't put a gun to their head either on that. We don't expect them to come on. Nothing that's been said here tonight has not been said to the individuals who attended the City Matters meetings at different levels. But what we want to use you, or use your podcast ears, because it's an hour, it's warts and all, it's unedited, and like you say, if we give a quote to the Evening News, they'll look for, well, we need to get a quote from the club to balance it, and it's the whole point was fans have an expectation level and they want to know what happened. What can you tell us about the meetings without telling everything or without breaking the NDAs? Why have come to this position now? And what are you all doing about it? And we can only say what we've all tried to do. And everybody here is absolutely proactive about, doing it off of their own free time. No one's getting paid for it. It's a labour of love. It really is. So it's out there. Hopefully, be out there from Sunday, and people can then talk about it even more. And certainly, we gave a statement, and some people were really behind that statement, and some people were like, "I don't understand why you're making these points." That's why we want the sequencing to be about the prices first. Let us know what we're going into, and then we can absolutely consult as many people as possible, and we can help the club. But it's got to be more detail than what we're seeing now.
And
Well,
if we could come in as well, just to say, Dante's right. I wouldn't expect the club to come on to, something like that's not what they do. But, let's use this as an opportunity to contact your City Matters rep, let them know where you stand on all these issues. Contact Mark, contact Lucas, contact anyone who has sort of that ability to feed it into the club, but particularly City Matters as the fan advisory board. We're stronger, and reps are in a position where they should be expecting feedback from fans, no matter what that sort of feedback is on different topics. And that'll strengthen that process with the club.